Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into something complex. The UK's latest border security, asylum, and immigration bill. It's evolving, and, well, it seems to be creating some surprising friction, especially with our green energy ambitions. We've looked at government reports, expert takes, our mission. To unpack the bill itself, explore this unexpected clash with sectors like green construction, and figure out what it all might mean for you.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating and, frankly, pretty critical intersection of policies. Ready to dive in?
Great. So let's start with the bill itself. Can you break it down for us? What are the core measures really changing things?
Okay, so fundamentally, this bill represents the government's latest big push to overhaul how the UK handles irregular migration and asylum claims. Key things: much faster deportation processes for people deemed to have entered illegally, stricter rules for appeals. Then there's the controversial idea of offshore processing for asylum claims. And finally, a cap on the overall number of asylum seekers the UK will accept. It's quite a package.
Right. The sources we looked at really seem to highlight this tension, don't they, between, say, securing borders, maintaining public trust maybe, and then the UK's humanitarian obligations. Where does this bill seem to land on that spectrum? Is it leaning more towards enforcement, or is there much focus on integration?
Oh, it definitely leans heavily towards enforcement. I mean, look, all countries want secure borders. That's a given. But this bill really prioritizes speed of processing, removal, that kind of thing. There's, let's say, less emphasis on the integration strategies we might have seen more of in past approaches.
Okay, enforcement focus. Now, this brings us to what feels like a slightly ironic twist. There's a new report out from the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, no less, and it's warning about potential labor shortages in green construction. How could tightening immigration possibly lead to problems hitting our climate goals? Seems counterintuitive.
It really does at first glance, but it shows just how interlinked everything is, doesn't it? You've got this green construction sector, it's booming. Think about retrofitting millions of homes, building energy-efficient infrastructure, installing all those heat pumps we need for net zero. It's growing fast, and the reality is a significant chunk of the workforce, the skilled and semi-skilled labor doing this work, often comes from migrant labor pools.
Ah, okay, so the connection is the workforce.
Exactly. The report is pretty explicit.
Yes.
It warns that putting severe restrictions on visas, the kind this bill might facilitate, could effectively choke off that labor pipeline. The direct risk, not having enough skilled workers to actually do the green transition work. Missing climate targets becomes a real possibility. And it's a pattern, isn't it? We've heard similar concerns from sectors like social care, agriculture, hospitality.
Right, when visa rules tighten up, that's a major policy headache then.
It's a classic policy clash, yes. Trying to achieve one goal, tighter border control, potentially undermining another, hitting net zero targets.
Given these kinds of potential impacts and the core measures themselves, what's the reaction been like, particularly thinking about the House of Lords, where bills often get, well, a thorough going over?
Yes, the Lords are definitely scrutinizing it closely. Key concerns seem to revolve around the legality of offshore processing. Does it potentially breach the Refugee Convention? There are also practical worries, the actual cost and logistics of deportations, and questions about whether setting a firm cap on numbers really aligns with the UK's international obligations. Serious points being raised.
Okay, so if those are the concerns, what kinds of changes are being suggested? Are there specific amendments being pushed in the Lords?
There are. Peers are trying to introduce amendments for stronger safeguards for unaccompanied children arriving alone, also pushing for clearer judicial oversight on decisions made under the bill, and interestingly, more flexible visa options, specifically tied to proven labor market shortages. Trying to build in a safety valve, perhaps, to avoid exactly the green construction issue we just talked about.
That makes sense. Stepping back a bit, how does the UK's approach here stack up against what other European countries are doing right now? Are we seeing similar trends across the continent?
It's a mixed picture, really. Many EU countries are also tightening rules around irregular migration, that's true. But, and this is quite a key difference, some are simultaneously expanding legal pathways for needed workers. Germany, for example, has its new Opportunity Card to attract skilled professionals. Spain has made it easier for sectors facing shortages to hire from abroad. So while there's a general trend towards more control, the UK's approach in this bill feels perhaps more singularly focused on the enforcement side compared to some neighbors.
Which leads to the really big question, doesn't it? Is it actually possible to balance these things? Can you have secure borders and a smart, flexible immigration system that actually helps the country meet its wider goals, like economic needs or climate targets?
I think the consensus among many experts is yes, absolutely. It's not necessarily in either situation. It's about designing systems intelligently. So you could have, say, dynamic visa systems that actually respond to real-time labor market data. Need more heat pump installers. The system adapts. You combine that with stronger measures against trafficking and exploitation and much faster, fairer asylum decisions that have proper legal safeguards. Control plus pragmatism.
So responsive.
Responsive and fair. And crucially, involving local levels more. Local governments, communities, they often deal with the direct impacts of these policies, positive and negative, and often argue they need more say in how things work on the ground.
Okay, so wrapping this up. We've seen how this new bill aims to tighten border security, but how that focus might unintentionally create hurdles for other national priorities, like the green transition. The real takeaway seems to be about joined-up thinking, doesn't it? That policies in one area can have really significant, perhaps unforeseen consequences elsewhere. Integrated policy seems key. And maybe a final thought for you, listening. How do we, as a society, get the balance right? Balancing those immediate security concerns, which are valid, with the longer-term needs of our economy and environment, especially when they seem to pull in different directions. What does all this mean for how we develop skills and adapt here in the UK in the future? Something to chew on.
Indeed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive today.
Thanks for listening. Stay informed and stay curious.